Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Dr. Dushavo here to review basically the last 2 weeks. We're almost there. So this week is upcoming week, I should say, is week 11. The week after is 12. 12 is a little bit short as your final is going to be at the end of that week. Week 11 is tough. It's neurological system, not going to lie. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm going to do a brief review now. Week 12, there's no new material, but there is a short discussion. And remember with the discussion in week 11 and 12, or any of the weeks that you're completing, to follow those directions that we've given you. So neurological system. The overarching structure of the nervous system is central and peripheral. Central is brain and spinal cord. Peripheral bring up a picture. Okay, so we have, this is a good picture, brain and spinal cord, and then peripheral nervous system. The brain and the spinal cord are like the train tracks. We have motor information that comes down and out to the body, sensory information that comes up to the brain. That information is then relayed out to the head, neck. There should be little nerves coming out here, just so you know. Head, neck, and body will be relayed on the peripheral nerves. The peripheral nervous system has voluntary movement, and it also has involuntary movement, which is the autonomic nervous system. And you probably remember the autonomic nervous system because that is your fight and flight. Okay, so parasympathetic and sympathetic. Okay, parasympathetic is chilling. You're chilling on the couch, eating your potato chips, having a soda. Sympathetic, a bear just walked into the room and you are trying to escape it. If you think of them that way, you can think of a lot of the autonomic functions. During parasympathetic, we will have a chance to digest, to release more saliva. You don't need as much air. The heart will slow down, digestion speeds up, gallbladder will work harder, intestines will work not harder, stronger. Bladder, there's not going to be as much of a response. It'll be a normal response to urination. Okay, and reproduction depends on which part of reproduction we're talking about with sympathetic, parasympathetic. Sympathetic, you're ready to fight or flight. You don't care too much about salivating and digesting, but you do have a good heart rate going and your airways are open. Okay, so that's a breakdown of that. The somatic nervous system deals with the body. That's your movement and your sensation. And once again, movement is going to go from the brain to the body. Sensation is sensed and brought from the body up to the brain. Okay, so that's a general breakdown of this central nervous system versus peripheral nervous system. Okay. Now, the tricky part with nervous system is there's so many different nerves in not generalized areas, but specific areas that look somewhat similar. If we look at the surface of the brain, the brain looks very similar. This is a realistic looking, I'm not too sure if this is actually a real one or not, this may be a model, looking brain. And when you look at the brain, it looks very similar. You just need to know the different regions and parts of the brain. And what's tough is these gyri, or raised areas in sulci, look very similar to these and these and these. So you need to start looking at it in a three-dimensional way. Start by getting yourself oriented to where the cerebellum is, and then you could look at the lobes of the brain. Same thing with spinal cord, same thing with the peripheral nerves. And let's do a brief look into some of those structures, okay? Structure and function. So we have central versus peripheral, and the breakdown of peripheral into somatic, which is our regular moving and grooving kind of nervous system, and autonomic, which creates all those automatic responses in our body. Once you get out into the peripheral nervous system, you have neurons. Neurons also have neuroglial cells, which are those supporting cells. The power points then go down into the structures of those different types of nerves, and also what types of nerves have what. We spoke about motor and sensory, it breaks it down into that. Neuroglia are supporting cells. Those are cells that will support, protect, and nourish neurons. We find different types of them in central versus peripheral nervous system. I would review those. Okay. Nerve injury and regeneration, repair would be a better word for that, because mature nerve cells don't regenerate. We don't create new ones, we repair them. And that only happens in the peripheral nervous system. If the cells are close enough, they can be repaired. So review that. Okay. Review how we send information down a nerve and what neurotransmitters are. So neurotransmitters are the substances that go between nerves from one nerve to the next to determine that signal and send it down to it. So if my brain says my right arm's going to move, I've got to send a neurotransmitter between the nerves to send that signal down to my arm. Okay. Then it gets into the different parts of the brain and the functions. Guys, this is just brute memorization. It's just sitting here looking at these structures, going to it, finding it. It's not there. Reticular formation is within this area. Memorizing what it is. Going to the next one, looking at it, memorizing what it is. So that gets a little crazy. Here's the different lobes, okay, of the brain, different parts of the brain stem and the spinal cord. Reflexes. Reflexes are protective responses that we have that cause us to react without thinking about it. Actually happens in the cord. You can see it right there, going up to the cord and back out. Upper motor neuron versus lower. Okay, so upper is in, let me break this down real down and dirty. Upper motor neuron is brain and spinal cord. Lower motor neuron is the peripheral nerves. Okay, upper motor neuron will give you stroke-like symptoms. You get spastic paralysis. Lower motor neurons, if you think of cutting a nerve in your arm, can cause flaccid paralysis. And let me show you the difference really quick. So flaccid, this is probably things you're familiar with. Okay, here's a spastic appearance. Okay, flaccid. It just looks like a limp limb. Probably not really a picture of it. But spastic paralysis gives you that appearance as you start to get tightening of an area. It becomes what looks like fetal position. They move towards that direction and they don't have control over relaxing those muscles. Okay, so here we go. Review that. Let's see. Neuromuscular junctions, the connection between the nerve and the muscle. And that's where the neurotransmitter would go, right into that space. Motor pathways. So pathways are the connection between the brain and the muscle, or the brain and the organ. Okay, so you have these different pathways. I would go through and look up what each one does. Okay, I'm just doing a brief review here, so that way you have an idea of what helps to control. These are a little tricky, I ain't gonna lie. Okay, so but let me give you a little tip. Corticospinal starts in the cortex of the brain and goes to the spine, for example. And this one's going to ask you about vestibulospinal. Boy, those should be defined. I'm going to find you a video about those. motor pathways. Okay, so you can review those because I'm trying to make just a quick 10-minute video here. I'm already beyond. All right. Protective structures. Don't forget the different types of meninges and also just the bones, right? The cranium is a very strong protective structure. Okay, blood supply to the brain. Review that. I already kind of went over parasympathetic and sympathetic. I would also, something else caught my eye here. Cranial nerves, okay? Definitely need to review those cranial nerves. You will absolutely have them in the future. So I'm gonna get you my cranial nerve review, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna quickly go through the rest of these PowerPoints. Okay, 15. Pain, temperature, sleep, and sensory function. So once you get a general idea of the structures in the brain and the spinal cord, you can go through and see which areas these centers are located. Okay, review that. These are going to be diseases that happen within these systems. This is going to be some bread and butter stuff for you. Traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, closed brain injuries, coup, counter coup, hematomas. This is going to be bread and butter stuff. So I would absolutely, for your own learning, definitely get through this. And some of this may seem familiar, especially working in ERs. Okay. Neurological function in children goes through, shows the difference in the fontanelles, the soft spots, development, etc. Okay, so please review neural tube defects. Definitely bread and butter stuff. Okay, that one's pretty short. Review that and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, module 12. Oh, quickly, here's your reviews. And then I believe there's 2 discussions here this week, and then I will post something with diseases as well if you'd like to respond to that. Module 12 you could see as review, but you do have a short discussion. It does need to be 250 words, and of course, please still submit it through the Turnitin. I do look at all those. Okay. As I said, I will post a review in here for cranial nerves and spinal tracts, as I feel that's something that would help you. Whoop. Okay, so spinal tracts, just to give you the gist, is giving you an idea of where information goes from the brain to the spinal cord. Oh, sorry. Okay. So if you were to take the cord, and the cord comes from the brain down to the body, and they've cut it horizontally here, so you can see inside. When you see inside, there's what we call tracts, and these tracts are very specific areas that transmit information down through very specific areas of the cord down to the body and vice versa. So if it is from the brain down through the cord to the body, it's called descending. If it's from the body up to the brain, it's called ascending. So I'm going to look for a short video or define some of those tracks that are in the notes for you, because they don't give you the functions of those tracks. The other thing I'm going to send you is a cranial nerve summary, because I do think cranial nerves are important to review. And that brings us almost to the end of the course, my friends. I hope you're all well. Don't hesitate to email me and I'll help as best as I can. And I hope you have a great couple weeks. Take care.